Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarini Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Welcome you all to the second session of the chapter 1 Arjuna Vishada Yoga from ISKCON Mangaluru. So can someone give us a quick glance of what we discussed yesterday? Maybe a 1 minute summary or 30-second summary is also fine. So anyone would like to go ahead? Matajis? Might be Shweta or Neeta Mataji. Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, Shubhra Mataji, or else you can go ahead, Mataji.
Yes,
I saw you
Prabhuji.
got unmuted. Yeah.
Yesterday we have seen the introduction where means we were in the means we have gone to the battlefield. The three persons which were there, like Dhritarashtra, about something about Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra, and Arjun and Bhagwan Shri Krishna. So
Yeah, yes, Mataji.
about little bit introduction about all of this, and the first shlok was said by Dhritarashtra, where he was asking Sanjay about what is happening in the battlefield, and then Duryodhan, he tells about Duryodhan, which to he went to Bhishma first, and then to Dronacharya, who was the guru of Duryodhan. So he went to both of them and told the war preparations. This was done by Drupada
Yeah,
for
yes,
Pandavas.
Mataji. I think,
So
yeah,
this was
you covered more or less. Post that, they blew the conch shells, right? So
yes,
the first, it was started by the Kauravas, by Bhishma, and then other Kauravas, and then followed by Pandavas. Thank you, Mataji.
yes, Prabhu.
So we'll
Hare
move
Krishna.
on. So now we'll see that yesterday we did touch base about our sampradaya, right? So our sampradaya is Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Okay. So the other aspect is, so I just want to touch about the parampara also. Okay. So parampara is nothing but the disciplic succession. Okay. So we should actually follow an authorized parampara system. Okay. It's a wherein things come in a disciplic succession. Okay. Because if you look in our parampara, right, so there should be a lineage. Okay. It's not that somebody uh, becomes a spiritual master overnight. Yeah. So he doesn't have a guru, right? Not having a guru and then claiming himself, because there are a lot of imposters. Okay, so which Prabhupada says in, right? So, and then Prabhupada says that we shouldn't follow, uh, or we should not fall in their prey. Okay, so whenever you choose a spiritual master in your life, right? So first thing is you should look at the lineage from where they are coming in. Okay, so in our case, right, it starts from Narada, right? So it cascades from Narada to Vyasadeva and then to Madhvacharya, right? Hence it's called Brahma Madhva Gaudiya, right? And then it comes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then it goes slowly to Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada, right? And then it comes to Srila Prabhupada, okay? And then Srila Prabhupada is our 32nd in the disciplic succession, okay? So these things are coming in a lineage, okay? So we should actually trust in such an sampradaya, okay? And then if you look in, right, So whatever you might have read or heard in this Bhagavad Gita as it is, right? So Prabhupada says that we should never ever tamper anything. Okay. So whatever is being spoken, it should be actually spoken in the same way. Okay. So because if you read, there are a couple of other Bhagavad Gitas which are also prevalent, but people tweak it. So tweak it, and then they put their own commentaries, which doesn't help in. So we'll have to follow through what was being said. Yeah. So that's one thing. So it is like an college degree, right? So will we go to a college and so where it's not authorized to an university? Okay, it's just there are classes going on, right? And then at the end, right? So if you want a degree, then will you get a degree from a university? No. So if the college prints a degree, some unauthorized college, so will we get a job? No, right? Similarly, so in your spiritual life also, we should choose a parampara, so which is actually coming in a lineage. Yeah. Okay. So that is something which I wanted to cover. And there are 5 topics. Okay. So before I jump into the next sloka, right? So I just wanted to cover these 5 topics because so yesterday we did start a little bit late, so we couldn't cover this one small topic. So anyone knows what are the 5 topics or the 5 main elements which actually sum up the Bhagavad Gita, right? So Bhagavad Gita deals with 5 things. I think these things you might have covered in your level 1 also, easy one. So you can try, so no harm. Yeah. So if things don't work, that's okay. So I'll tell the answer. What is it?
मुझे जब ज्ञान योग भक्ति योग and कर्म योग.
No. Shubhra Mataji, you answered, so possibly we'll give others also a chance. Let's see. So if others actually have this or not. So I'll give you an example. Mm, Jiva. Something strikes, no? No? Okay, that's fine. So I'll take it up. Okay. So Bhagavad Gita actually deals with 5 things. Yeah. So one is Jiva, next is Ishvara, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. Right. So these are the 5 topics if you broadly look in, right? So Jiva is nothing but the minute soul, right? The soul is Jiva, right? Ishvara is the supreme controller, yeah? And Prakriti is the material nature. Yeah? Kala is the time. So as we move on, right? So we'll touch base Prakriti in the coming of chapters. We'll touch base Jiva, Ishvara, everything. We'll touch base and Kala. Kala is nothing but the time. In during the say Vishwarupa, right? Krishna says that I am Kala. Okay, so is the time. So time actually is the factor which makes one from young to old, right? And then so different stages of life. Yeah, so we go through. And karma. Karma is something which we all know, right? So at least in India, karma in one form or the other, everyone knows it. Yeah, so there is good karma and bad karma, right? Why do we suffer? Due to bad karma. If you are enjoying, then it's due to your good karma, right? So you might be seeing that there are few personalities or so few people who are born rich, right? So did they do anything in this life? No, right? Say if there is a big industrialist, and then a small baby is born. So, so the baby is born with a silver spoon, right? So, so did she do anything in this life? No. So these are all the karmas from her past life. She did some very good. She or he did very good pious activities in their past life. Hence, they are in a good place. Yeah. So, and karmas are also different. Yeah. So there will be instant karma, and then there will be few karmas which will fructify afterwards. Yeah. So which takes time. Instant karma is something, say like you get on at the same time. Yeah. Say like if you're doing something, right? So um, like on the street, right? If you go and slap a small boy, right? A small baby, right? For one reason or the other, if the father is there, he'll again slap you back. That's instant karma, right? So in that way, so basically we'll deal with these things, okay? And today we'll go to our now we'll go to the next session. Yeah. So we actually just covered these sections. Yeah. Sanjay informs Dhritarashtra of Duryodhana's appraisal for relative fighting strengths of Pandava and Kuru armies. Yeah. And then on the other side, the blowing of conch shells. So the conch shells also have the names. Yeah. And then we'll cover through these things. Okay. And the other thing is in this, the whole Dharma Kshetra or this religious fighting was actually arranged by Lord Krishna because he wanted to remove, right, all adharmic people, right? So he wanted to lessen the burden on the earth, right? Because why does Krishna appear in this world? So any avatar he takes in, right? So he actually takes the avatar when the adharmic people, right? So when the demonic uh, functions or the demonic nature increases, and then say the pious people or the devotees are in the minority, and then in that case, right, so the Lord comes in and then he protects his devotees, and then he actually punishes the adharmic people, right? So in this case, so Kurukshetra battle was arranged wherein he actually arranged all of them in one place, right? So whoever were supporting Kauravas were all adharmic, right? So he wanted to remove all of them at once, right? Instead of going and searching them, right, in different places. So all were collected in one place, so that they'll all be punished. Yeah. Yeah. So we just saw that Krishna actually blew the Panchajanya, right? So these are the conch shell names. Yeah. So you should remember these things. These things may be in your quiz. Yeah. So when you write the exams, right? So these things will help. Yeah. And Arjuna had Devadatta, right? So Bhima had Poundra, Yudhishthira, Ananta Vijaya, Nakula and Sahadeva, Sughosha and Pushpaka. Yeah. So and in these verses, right? And in this chapter also, right? There will be different names which Arjuna actually say addresses to Lord Krishna. Okay, so there are different names. So in different situations, he uses different names because he wants that the Lord act in that way during that instance or that circumstance, right? He wants the Lord to take that role. So that's the reason he says. And Krishna has unlimited names, forms. We all know that, right? So everything is unlimited. So that's the reason he's called Bhagavan, right? So Bhagavan is what? Yes, all unlimited. Yeah. He has unlimited beauty, strength. Yeah. So whatever you name it, he has. So here, if you look in it, Krishna, the name Krishna itself is all attractive. Okay, so that's the meaning of Krishna. And Rishikesha is nothing but the master of senses. Okay, and Madhava is husband of goddess of fortune. Okay, and Achyuta is infallible one. Okay, so the one who never actually uh, so the, how can I put this? So one who never fails in his promises. Yeah? And Madhusudana is the killer of demon named Madhu. Yeah? Govinda, one who gives pleasure to the senses or cows. So this is most widely used, right? We say Govinda, right? And Vasudeva. So he is the son of Vasudeva. Yeah. So that's the reason he is called. And then Krishna actually becomes more enchanted if we address him as the with the devotees. Okay, say like Devaki Nandana, right, or Yashoda Nandana, or Parth Sarthi. So if at all those names if they use in right, so Krishna becomes more happy. So because he reciprocates with the pure devotees, and then he would like to be addressed in that way. So he gets more excited when we actually call Krishna with all these names. Yeah, Parthasarathi is the charioteer of Partha. Partha is nothing but Arjuna, right? So Yashoda is son of Yashoda. Keshava is the killer of demon Keshi. Yeah, Janardhana is nothing but maintainer of all living entities, or killer of all living entities. Dhananjaya is conqueror of wealth. So anyone knows why Arjuna is called conqueror of wealth? Any idea? So because when Yudhishthir Maharaj wanted to do an yajna, right? So Arjuna helped in getting the treasury, okay, for doing the yajna. That's the reason he's called Dhananjaya. Okay. So Partha, son of Kunti, Gudekesha, one who conquers sleep, because Arjuna was such a warrior that he can fight restlessly day and night. So for him, there is no, even in the whatever archeries or say whatever feats he can do in the morning, right? He can do in the night. It's even so that's the reason he's called Gudakesha, right? So he doesn't get tired in the night like us. So in the night, even for us, driving our own vehicle becomes tedious, right? For him, it's not. And Rikodara is nothing but Bhima, because Bhima was a voracious eater, right? And he used to perform Herculean tasks, right? So for that's the reason he's called Rikodara, right? Um, so now we'll move ahead. Yeah. So the blowing became uproarious, right? So with all the sounds and all, right? So Duryodhana's team blew conch shells, which didn't shatter Pandava's heart, but on the other hand, right? So the Kaurava's heart got shattered. And you might notice that so whatever Duryodhana spoke, right? So Duryodhana spoke so many things, right? He spoke about diplomacy, he spoke about the opponents, he spoke about himself. He actually went and then he said that he took the generals into his custody, and then he got their thumbs up. So he did everything, right? So which is required for fighting. But one thing he missed in. So in all his attempts, right? So he never ever thought of the Lord, right? So in his whole story, if you look in all these verses, right, he never spoke about the God, right? So it was all about me, right? Me, mine, material, luxury. So he just wanted to wipe out people and then say earn all the riches for himself. But he never ever spoke, um, right? He never ever spoke about the Lord. So that's the way the materialistic life is. Even if you look in the people in and around us also, right? So all are like that. So everyone is after money, right? So money, luxuries, how well we can lead this life, right? But nobody thinks of the God. So from where do we get all these things, right? So all these, whatever we have, right? This nature, the food grains, the rains, whatever it is, everything is Lord's mercy. So that nobody acknowledges, and then everyone feels that they themselves are the proprietors. Yeah. So the same thing happened for Duryodhana. So then Arjuna is prepared to fight now, right? So now both the parties have say have been on the battlefield, and then they have blown the conch shells, and then now they are ready to fight. Arjuna is preparing Arjuna's flag. So now we'll see that what are the good signs which the Pandavas had in, right? So why the Pandavas were dharmic and on the other side the Kauravas were adharmic. One is the materialistic mindset, and the other thing is say they didn't have any God consciousness with them, right? And the other aspect is in them itself they had a lot of duplicity. Okay, so because when Bhishma was on the battlefield, right, Karna was not there because Karna said that I'll either of us can lead this battle from the Kurus. So if Bhishma is there, I'll not enter. So in that way, right? So they had a lot of insecurity, politics, name, fame, shows, everything was there in them. But if you look in from the Pandava side, right? So they never had those things, right? So all the brothers were on the battlefield, right? So and so everyone had their own tasks to be performed, right? So they are mostly on a teamwork, right? And then they had the God also, so they were God conscious also, right? We look what are the signs of victory which Pandavas had, right? So by looking them itself, we can say that yes, Pandavas always had an upper hand, though the size of army which they had was very less compared to Kauravas. Kauravas had a bigger army, right? But Pandavas had a smaller army, and then the Kauravas had Bhishma Pitama, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, so all stalwarts. Yeah. But Pandavas had Lord Krishna with them, right? So these are the signs of victory which they had from the Pandavas. Right? So one is Lord Krishna's personal presence confirms the victory. So wherever we'll know at the end of the chapter what Sanjay concludes, right? So wherever there is Krishna and Arjuna, so there is victory, right? So so one of the biggest asset which they had is in the form of Lord Krishna. So though he said that he will not take the weapon, but because he being on the chariot, right? So all the arrows which went from Arjuna's bow, right? So they were all directed by Lord Krishna itself, right? So Jayastu Pandu Putranam Yesham. So this is what it's been said, right? Krishna as Rishikesha directly controls the senses of the pure devotee. Okay. So Krishna is called Rishikesha, who is the controller of the senses. So he's the controller of all. He's the master of senses. Yeah. And then he is the Paramatma also. So he resides in every living entity, right? And then wherever we have Lord Krishna, right? So then we'll have the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi also, because like goddess of Lakshmi is not different from Krishna, right? So she is always part and parcel of Krishna, right? So that's the reason we always say Lakshmi Narayana, right? Or Radha Krishna. So so whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is always there, right? She never leaves her husband, right? So therefore all fortune is guaranteed. Yeah. And then the venue, right? Kurukshetra is a pious place, right? So it's an holy place. And the Kapidhwaja, say the flag on Arjuna's chariot, was emblemed by Hanumanji, right? So Hanumanji is one of the pure devotees of Lord Rama, right? Who helped in gaining the victory, right? So, and then symbols of Vishnu conch shell, right? And the transcendental conch shells were also being were blown, yeah. And they had the Agni Deva's chariot given to Arjuna, which was capable in conquering all directions. Yeah. So all these things are the plus points which the Pandavas had. And when the Pandavas went into Vanaprastha, right? So, so those 12 years, what did they do? So they went and then so they were actually preparing for themselves, right? So Arjuna got all these gifts, right? Say the chariot and the horses and so all the archeries, and then so he got the Gandiva. So they were actually in the exile, but they utilized that exile for majority of their positives. Yeah, and then even Yudhishthir Maharaj was actually going and meeting the sages, right? And then say he was learning more about truthfulness and all those things. Yeah, so they were getting trained themselves. But on the flip side, right, these guys, the Kauravas were always looking for cheating propensity, and then how can we actually take the kingdom, right? And then even when the Pandavas were in the exile, right, so they tried different options. So wherein they did send Durvasa Muni, right? Say once the lunch was done, right? So the Pandavas had finished their lunch, and then Durvasa Muni was being sent, and then Durvasa Muni is known for his anger, right? And so they did have only the Akshay Patra, so which actually produces the food, and then once the food is served, and then once everyone has taken their meal, right? The Akshay Patra doesn't actually give the food more. So at that time, so Kauravas actually had sent Durvasa Muni knowing that time, so to trouble Pandavas. But so in that case also Krishna helped in, right? So that's the way. So Krishna was always with them. Yeah. So Arjuna calls Achyuta infallible one. Yeah. So never fails in his affection for his devotees. Yeah. So that's the meaning of Achyuta. Yeah. So we'll just read this verse. So we will not be able to cover all the verses, but at least this verse we'll cover. So in here, right now, Arjuna asks him. Okay, so now Arjuna instructs the Lord. So Lord has taken the charioteer position, right? So Lord Krishna is Bhaktavalsa, right? So Vatsala. So he actually enjoys the company of his devotees, only for pure devotees. Yeah. So even The Lord will give you the liberation easily, but He'll not give bhakti, devotion that easily, because He gets attached to the devotees, right? So that's the reason. So now Krishna has taken the humble role of a charioteer. Okay. And then say he has to follow the instructions of Arjuna. Okay. So now Arjuna says, Arjuna vacha Senyorubhayor madhye ratham sthapayame achyuta yavadeta nirikshe yodhu kaman avasthitan. So now he's saying, Arjuna said, oh, infallible one. So infallible one is Achyuta. Okay. Please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trail of arms. Okay. So you see, uh, Prabhupada has given a beautiful purport wherein he says that although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his costless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees. So this is the meaning of Achyuta. And thus he is addressed herein as infallible. A charioteer, as a charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer of his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. Yeah. So, in all circumstances, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, Rishikesha, the Lord of the total senses. So, it doesn't mean that he has taken the humble position of a charioteer, so he loses uh, his position. Yeah. So, his position is always intact. Just he takes the roles, right? As a son, as a friend, right? The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. So these are very transcendental. These things we cannot bring into our material mundane affairs. Yeah. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. So in the coming chapters, you will learn these things. Yeah. So wherein we have a shloka also. So ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tatheva bhajamyam. Okay. So the way we surrender, right? The Lord reciprocates. So he takes greater pleasure in his pleasure, pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the givers of orders. So this is what the materialistic things people think, right? So most of us when we go to the temple or anything, right? So we always think that say God is our supplier, right? So we go and ask, give me this, give me that, right? So we should uh, slowly cultivate the habit of not asking for the Lord, right? So rather we should go and then pray to the Lord for the spiritual journey, right? So ask His mercy for the spiritual stuff, right? So not for the material thing. So we should open up our minds to the Lord to connect ourselves with the Lord, yes, and not for materialistic things, right? So because if the Lord is with us, right, spiritually, then automatically other things will fall in line, right? So he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is infallible master in all circumstances. Okay. So this is the situation now. Okay. So now Arjuna actually, as ordered, right? Lord Krishna actually takes him on onto the battlefield. Okay. So Arjuna wants to see the opponents, so who are actually who have come to the battlefield and then who have taken the opponent's role, and then so who are the party of the Duryodhanas, right? So he just wanted to check. So Lord Krishna, out of love and causeless mercy, accepted the position of charioteer. Yeah, so this we covered. Arjuna, being pure devotee, right? In the next 23rd verse, has no desire to fight, right? So he just wanted to see how much they, his relatives and friends, were bent up on demanding an unwanted war, because the Pandavas were never interested in this war. Yeah, so this was all the Kauravas who wanted this war. So he wanted to see the supporters who wanted to please evil-minded Duryodhana. Okay. So because before you fight, right, you just have to see in right. Say like when you play chess or something, also, right. So you always check how the opponent's game is, right. So similarly, in the battlefield, we'll have to look at the strengths, right. So that's the reason he asks, and then there is a beautiful analogy which Prabhupada writes in saying that birds of same feathers flop together, or so birds of same flocks fly together. Yeah? So we see that the birds always fly in one direction, right? So there will be a group of birds. Yeah? So now what happens is Gudakesha, Arjuna, one who conquers sleep or ignorance. Arjuna always thinks of Krishna similarly as the devotees in Samadhi. So Arjuna is a pure devotee, okay. And then Samadhi is something so, wherein day in and day out, right? So in all the activities which you do, in right, you're in trance, right? You're in trance of thinking about the Lord, right? So now he actually asks. So now Lord Krishna actually drives the chariots in front of the Kurus, and then he says that behold Arjuna now, right? So now because Krishna knows in right the moment Arjuna sees the opponents, right? So he's very soft-hearted, and then she'll have compassion and all these things coming up. So that's the reason he actually warns him. Says that behold Arjuna. Okay, so now you're going to see the opponents, and then the opponents were who? All his relatives, right? His grandfather, his guru, right? His maternal uncles, all. So then so he took, and then he says that behold with attention, right. And he knew that Arjuna is not ready. So what happens, so Arjuna actually, when he's on the battlefield, he sees all his relatives, well wishers, right. And see, he sees grandfather, right. His his grandfather is what, Bhishma, right. And then teachers like Drona, and his maternal uncles, his kith and kin, his brothers, right? And then his sons, right? So, though Duryodhana always felt that the Pandavas were separate, but the Pandavas never felt it. So they always felt that they're always the part and parcel of them. Okay. So even Yudhishthir Maharaj, right? So when there is a necessity, right? So he used to say that we are 105 brothers. Yeah. If at all Kauravas were in trouble, right? So Yudhishthira Maharaj used to say that we are 105 and then we should help them. Okay. But in this case, right? So it's a different case wherein say they're on the battlefield, right? So now here Arjuna looks at all his opponents, right? And then after looking that, right? So due to his soft-heartedness, right? So his body starts trembling, right? His Gandiva slips in, right? And then his hair stand up, right. And then he gets nervous, right. So uh, so the standing of hair happens in two cases. One is when spiritually you're spiritually ecstatic, okay. So when there is a lot of ecstasy flowing through you spiritually, right. So in that case you'll have the hair standing. And the other thing is when you're totally fearful, when you're totally nervous. So that's the materialistic aspect. Yeah. So in this case, Arjuna was actually giving more stress to his vision, the materialist. So he was actually referring himself to be the body, right? So he had more attachment to the body, and then so this body has more attachment to the relatives, to the friends, to the society, right, to the country, right? So he was more on that platform. So he was looking everything in that platform, right? So you'll see, yeah. So he had a lot of daya and kripa. So he was a good soul. So that's the reason he had all these things, because he's a Rajarishi, right? So he was not only a Kshatriya, but he was a devotee also, right? So for that's the reason he's having all these compassions. Yeah. So he got totally overwhelmed, right? And then he spoke. He says that now his mind is actually reeling. And then Arjuna's symptoms, right? We just spoke limbs of body quivering and mouth drying up, right? So the reasons is sympathy and compassion for seeing this. And then he was thinking, what will happen if all these folks are killed in the battlefield, right? And he was actually astonished. So why is this thing happening? Huh? And then we'll read this sloka also, 28, right? We'll read one more sloka. Yeah. So now Arjuna um, actually expresses so what is happening to him, right? So dristvemam swajanam Krishna yuyutsam samupasthitam siddhanti mamaga gatrani mukham chapari shushyati. So he says that swajanam. So all these are my own kings and relatives, kinsmen, right? So he says that they are excited and then they have come for fighting now, right? By seeing them. So Gatran is nothing but limbs of the body. So they are quivering, right? And then his mukham, his mouth is drying up. Yeah. Parishishyati. His mouth is drying up. Arjuna said, my dears Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. Right. So we covered these things. So we'll go ahead. Yeah. So I said just covered it, right? So why the body gets trembled, right? So and then it was a situation wherein the Gandiva was slipping from his hand. So Arjuna is such a great fighter that the Gandiva will never leave him. So in this case, so in the battlefield, he is about to leave his Gandiva. Okay, and then he says, now we will see this. Now Arjuna, who being a great warrior, so and a Kshatriya, whose job is to fight, now he becomes compassionate, and then he goes into the Vishada Yoga, right? So this is what his Vishada is, right? So he completely gets baffled. Yeah. So unable to stand any longer, forgetting himself, right? His symptoms, he's forgetting himself, his weakness of mind, and so fearfulness of loss of mental equilibrium, right? So so he's frustrated. He's having frustrations. He's only misfortune. He'll not be happy even after winning the war. Okay. So nimitani viparatani. So frustrations, thinking why I'm here. Yeah. So what Arjuna is thinking now is, so if the battle happens, I'm going to kill my own men, right? And then he has to kill his guru, so his grandfather. So he's saying, what is the fun in killing them and then getting the kingdom, right? So, and he'll say that it is better that I'll beg, so rather than fight, right? So he says that I'll take the renounced order. So what is the fun in killing my own relatives, my own blood relation? right? And he goes into that angle, and then being a Kshatriya, right, he forgets his duty, right? So Kshatriya's job is to go and fight, right? So when that too, when he's in a war, he has to fight. And there are only two things which a Kshatriya does in. So either he wins the battle and enjoys the kingdom, or he dies in the battle and then is liberated. So there is no question of an Kshatriya so who can turn his back and then say that I don't want to fight, right? So that will never happen. So you'll see that he'll say all these things. So now Arjuna is speaking all these things. Yeah. So he says that how can I kill them? And then you'll see through in the next slokas. So he thinks so much in the future. Say what will happen to their childrens, right? So and then what will happen to the women, right? And say the when the elders are killed, right? So the childrens will not be guided, and then in the family, right? What happens in the erstwhile or till today also, right? So there are a lot of families wherein the decisions, right? So the tough decisions are always taken by the elders, right? So when we don't know, when we are confused, we seek their advice. So and then they guide us, right? So similarly, he's saying that who will be there? So when they are not there, and then there will be lot of unwanted population because there will be free mixing of women, right? Because they don't have their anyone who can take care of them, right? And then the children's, so they'll not be taught sanskaras. So how will they grow up? And then he even thinks of what will happen to the forefathers. So wherein, so we know that say for the forefathers, there are rituals wherein say every year there is the prasad of the Lord which is being offered, right? So that's these are the ritualistic. So these are we call it as pindas, right? So all those things who will do? So he's saying that if the next generation is polluted, so they'll not do all these things, and what will happen to the forefathers? Because he says that there are so many um, people, so or those who have left the body, right? So they are not able to get a subtle body. And then if these prasads are not offered to them, how can they get those things? Yeah. So he has all these, he thinks so many things, you see. See. Um, so parts of the body, limbs, mouth, and then they are all drying up. So these are the symptoms of compassion for Arjuna, right? So hands, so Gandiva bow is slipping, skin is burning, right? So because he's producing a lot of heat by thinking, right? And then his legs are trembling, he's not able to stand. So that happens, right, for us also. So when there is a lot of anxiety, right? So something which is undesirable, right? So in those circumstances, we also feel the effect, right? And then so forgetting myself and mind reeling due to weakness of the heart. Okay. So this is what we covered, right? So no happiness, right? Decided to lead a secluded life in the forest. He says that I'm ready. I'm ready to go and beg, but I'll not fight in. So he says that what is the fun? And the other thing also he'll tell that so whenever we actually mostly what happens is if somebody goes to an abroad or somebody earns more money and then what does he do? He buys a big bungalow, right? Big car, and then so he want to show off these things with his family, friends, right, in the society. Similarly, Arjuna says that when my relatives and my kinsmen are dead, so what is the use of the kingdom? So whom will I show it, right? And so says that I'm not ready to fight if I get all the three worlds, right? So leave about the earth. If I get all the planets also, I'm not ready to fight, he says. Okay. And then he calls uh, now Lord Krishna as Govinda. Govinda is one who gives pleasures to both cows and the senses. That he so now he says that so you should actually take care of it. So I'm not going to do anything now. So I'm not going to kill. And so Madhusudana is saying Krishna is killer of demon Madhu. Arjuna is expecting that Krishna would kill his doubts like the demons, right? So he's expecting those things. So now the the verses are coming through Severin. So we'll see that Arjuna at one stage in the next chapter will seek Lord Krishna's assistance because he will not be able to do, he'll not be able to control the situation, right? So so living entities, right? So they if they are trying, so living entities, they are trying to satisfy his own senses, right? This materialistic approach, right? So if at all the Lord's, if we satisfy the Lord's senses, right? So automatically all our things are being taken care. And then he says, unable to share opulences with relatives, you see. So he says this is material calculations, right? So Arjuna being devotee, very kind hearted, wants to forgive his relatives. Even he goes to that stage also. So he says that say they might not know that this is a wrong thing, but we know it, right? So this is a wrong thing. So why to fight? So let's leave it. Krishna will not fight. Yeah. And then Arjuna is now fearful of these sinful reactions. Okay. So these are the six kinds of aggressions. Yeah? So if somebody does it, right? So in the past, they can be killed as a punishment. So there is no other rule book of going to High Court, Supreme Court, judge, this, that, nothing. So if any of them, if they had done these things in the past when the kings were ruling, right? If they were falling in these six categories, right? Straight away they used to be killed. Okay. So who are those six kind of aggressors? Are poison givers, right? One who sets fire to the house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, right? So occupying another's land is, so in this Kali Yuga, in this day and age, it is very common, right? So and one who kidnaps another's wife, so or who actually looks at others' wife in another way, right? So all these guys have to be killed, and then there is no sinful reactions. So kidnapping another's wife, famous example, who? Ravana. So Ravana took Mother Sita, right? So he wanted with the materialistic angle, right? So what happened? He was killed, right? So if you look in, right, all these things Kauravas have done. Right? Here they have given poison, they have attacked, they have lit the fire, right? They have taken their land, so they disrobed Draupadi, so they did all these six activities. So it should be the other way, right? But yeah, Arjuna actually thinks, no, still we can live them. Yeah. And then he says that there will be a lot of misfortune which we will get in. Okay. Arjuna says that due to greed, the opposite party is ready to fight and kill each other. Arjuna understands that result of war is destruction of family, and then he sees no benefit, right? And the other thing is Kshatriyas should never refuse when they are invited for gambling and war. So this is the rule. So that's how Yudhishthira Maharaj was ready to play the gambling match with the dice, right? He says that the other party is blind, but we are not, right? So the other party is evil minded, but we are not. So we know, right? And then he says, what will happen? So destruction of dynasty, family traditions will be vanquished, right? Family become a religion. We covered all these things, right? So elders will not be there, right? So elder members of the families will not be there. So death of elders will stop purification process, young members will become irreligious. So all these things happen. And then 42, 43, right? He says that the same thing, purification, young members become irreligious, lose chance for spiritual salvation. So nobody will have the spiritual angle anymore, right? So he says that the risk of war will give unwanted progeny, which is Varna Shankara. This is this mixing of Varnas. So women's will become polluted, right? So there will be no protection for family members, right? There will be irresponsible leaders which will bring chaos in society by destroying Sanatan Dharma. So this is what he's thinking, okay? But so he's not thinking on the other hand that what will happen if Duryodhana becomes the king, right? So he himself was trying to disrobe Draupadi, right? So what kind of justice will he give? And then when when such a king is ruling, right, the whole kingdom also will become like that, right? So yatha raja tatha praja, right? So this will become. So he's missing all these things, yeah. So these are all the things, right? So which are being put in sequence, okay. The superiors are killed, destruction of dynasties, so destruction of Vedic rituals, irreligion, yeah, women become unchaste, Varna Shankara, and then all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Okay, so Arjuna fears of sinful activities. Okay, he says that I'm ready to be killed unarmed also. So he is ready. So if the opponent kills, I'll not pick the weapon also. So he is going into that mode, and then now he's overwhelmed with grief, and then he cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot. He says, I will not fight now. Okay, chapter 1. So we end up chapter 1 here with Arjuna's compassionate thing, and then the saintly qualities, right? So if you look into, these are all his saintly qualities. He's very soft hearted. He doesn't want the war because it is going to kill a lot of people. So all these things, yeah. So we covered, and then he's even ready to beg, and then he's even ready to die unarmed. So he's having so many things which are coming into his mind. Yeah. So this is the summary. So Arjuna is very compassionate. There is no enjoyment, right? Arjuna thinks he will not be able to enjoy his kingdom, right? And then destruction of family, saintlessness, and fear of sinful reaction. So he's thinking of that. So I'll incur sin, right? But you'll see how Krishna actually guides him to take up the dharma, right? So that's one more thing, right? So and then now Arjuna is indecisive, so he doesn't know. So what to do now, right? So this is the condition which we are in day in day out, right? And then you'll see that Arjuna used his material senses, and then he was confused. But you'll see that Lord by his Vani, right? So by hearing, right? So by Shravanam, Arjuna actually changes, and then he does what is the dharma, and then he fights the battle, right? So that's the importance of Shravanam, yeah. So for spiritual life, and so to progress in spiritual life, right? So we should always have good Shravanam. Okay. Hare Krishna. So we'll end up for today. So this ends the chapter 1. Yeah. And then next week we'll pick chapter 2. So chapter 2 is very interesting, and then so that's the one which contains the whole summary of Bhagavad Gita, right? So chapter 2. So it's a long chapter. We'll see if we may need 3 classes to cover it, or we'll see how things fold on. Hare Krishna, Matajis and Prabhujis, any questions you have from today's class? Hare Krishna Mataji, Shalini Mataji, you have something to ask for?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna to all devotees. Prabhuji, I just wanted to know, like, uh, if we compare that situation in
Hmm,
today's scenario,
hmm,
so yeah, I think if they would have just killed Duryodhan and all the top leaders,
hmm,
then this war could have been avoided. I mean, it is that time Prabhu Sakshat was there with them.
hmm.
But today, in today's scenario, I feel personally that we have to be little, Chanakya sort of mentality, kill all the topmost leaders so that the other people in the society, so much damage could not have been happened to them.
Yeah. But Mataji, so all those were supporting the wrongdoers, right? So they were all adharmic, right? So
Okay, yes.
so that's the reason they have to be killed, right? So if they are not killed, right, so they'll again start this business, right? So this will never end. So that's the reason they were all collated, right? So into one place. So wherein they were all having the same mentality. So each one was a Duryodhana there. So Duryodhana might have been a bigger one, so wherein he is more visible as a leader, but rest all also who were supporting him, right? So they were also like that only. So when these impious things are more, right, Mataji? So the Lord actually takes charge, right? And then she has to kill him. Else, even the Mother Earth also cannot take the burdens of this sin, right? So that has to be done.
Hmm. But Bhishma Pitama, he was such a big devotee of Sri Krishna. Still, he fell into this pap karma.
So, though, and so you'll know why Bhishma was on the opponent side. So that was also on the will of the Lord, because though Bhishma was on the other side, he was enjoying the fight with the Arjuna, right? So he was actually enjoying the opponent. So from there, right, she was enjoying the beauty of the Lord, right? So when you read Bhagavatam, so there are beautiful prayers which Bhishma actually prays, right? So he's undoubtedly one of the great devotees of the Lord. And then he was in the Virya Rasa, Mataji. So he wanted to have the fighting spirit. He was in that Virya Rasa with Lord Krishna. Hence
Okay.
that
Mm-hmm.
arrangement. Yeah. So
Okay.
the thing is, Mataji, we look at the material angles. Okay, say because that's what I said, right? So we have 4 defects, right? And then we think in our material plane. But if you will in the spiritual world, right, things are different. So that's the reason, say, they were in Virya Rasa, and that's in the fighting rasas. There are different types of rasas, and then they were in the Virya Rasa. So Bhishma was enjoying actually. Internally, he was enjoying. Externally, because see, he had promised, he had a vow saying that so whosoever is the king of Hastinapur, right? So he'll actually help them, or and then he'll be with them. That's the reason he was actually with Duryodhana. But actually, if you see, he was enjoying more than Arjuna, because Arjuna could only see the back portion of Lord Krishna. But Bhishma Pitama was seeing the face of Lord Krishna, and then he was enjoying every bit of Lord Krishna, from his feet to his cloth to his hair, everything. Yeah.
Okay, okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So Matajis and Prabhujis will wind up for today. Thank you for your association. We'll meet in the next class on next Friday. Vanchakalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.